All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick are a preview and prediction for the FCS National Championship game between North Dakota State and Montana State going down Monday, January 6th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time from Toyota Stadium in Frisco, Texas. Montana State, 3-point favorites, 56.5 is the total. Getting things started with the Bison offense on this Bobcat defense. Obviously, there's two great units. Both teams really possess great offenses and defenses. The Bison putting up the fourth most points per game in the FCS level, 36.7. Cam Miller's been a tremendous quarterback this year. This is a team that's phenomenal at running the football, but he's been a very good passer as well. 203 yards per game, completing almost 73%. Over 3,000 yards passing, 31 touchdowns, 4 picks, and he also has 5, 10 rushing and 10 more touchdowns. I mean, this guy is highly effective. His numbers are phenomenal. Of course, this is a team that also runs for almost 200 yards per game with Sharmar Brown and Marika Kapinu at running back. Brown has over 1,000 yards and 14 touchdowns of his own, going up against a very good Montana State run defense led by Brody Grebe. Kenneth Eden, two phenomenal edge defenders, especially against the run. I like what they can do against the pass as well. Paul Brout, one of their interior linemen, him and Alex Eckert are a pretty good pairing as well. This is a team that plays with a lot of heart, a lot of tenacity, Nick. This is a team of North Dakota State that they were underdogs at home against South Dakota State. I had money on the Bison, and they were able to get the job done with some juice there. Offense was all right, had 179 passing by Miller, and then running the ball was a little bit harder, 150 yards, and their lead running back Brown only had 23 yards and 11 attempts. Miller carried them, Nick. None of the running backs top 30. He had 93 and a score. He really had to carry them, and it looks like he's going to have to do it again here in this game against Montana State.
Cam Miller is a very special player, and we knew that kind of from the start. If you remember back when North Dakota State took on Colorado on a Thursday night to kick off the season in August, all the way back in August, I know that was a long time ago, but Miller had 277 and a touchdown passing, 18 to 22, and had 16 carries for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns against Colorado in a game that was phenomenal to open up the season, a game where they covered the spread. And that's when I knew this Cam Miller kid could potentially lead this North Dakota State team to a national championship. In the preseason, North Dakota State was not getting as much love in the FCS bracket. A lot of people were on Montana State, a lot of people were on South Dakota State, the team they just beat. Some other teams, South Dakota, a team that previously beat them earlier in the regular season. So this NDSU team, they've fallen out of favor in terms of people that watch the FCS regularly. I know their head coach had left to take the job as a linebackers coach at USC. So people were down on this team, but this team is still a talented team, the same team that won, the same university that won all those titles, 8 out of 9 years winning national championships, including multiple times. They won a few in a row, and Cam Miller is hoping to get this team back to that level. He's a really talented player, extremely accurate with the 73% comp rate, 3,000 yards passing, 31 touchdowns. Impressive numbers. 200 yards per game through the air is an incredible number. This kid is so accurate, really good in the pocket, really comfortable, a really good leader for this team. Phenomenal on the ground as well, with the 510 yards rushing and the 10 scores, his averaging about 34 yards per game. Really impressive numbers. I like what this offense can do. This is a high-volume scoring offense that's really good on the ground and through the air. 36.7 points per game is no joke. I think Cam Miller is in line here to have a very strong day.
And you have a defense that is very good against the run, against the pass. A little bit not as great, 30th in pass defense. Still great numbers, but I think there's some advantages here for top pass catcher Bryce Lance, the brother of Trey Lance, 964, 16 touchdowns this year. He's got so much production throughout the rest of this receiving group. It's not much. Chris Harris, Braylon Henderson, both have over 300, but less than 400 as well, and a combined 4 touchdowns. So Lance has been getting all the targets. He had an elite one-handed grab for the go-ahead score in that semifinal game, going up against a team that's got a good corner in Simeon Woodard, Andrew Powdrell, and John Johnson, though not as polished, so there might be some opportunities for him to certainly strike. But that's pretty concerning when you only have one guy catching passes, Nick, though, and if this run game isn't working, it can certainly be a long day for the Bison offense. Good news is, though, they have a great left tackle. He should go potentially in the first round, likely the second round at worst, at left tackle, Gray Zabel. He's had an elite season. The rest of the offensive line on the interior hasn't been as great. I think in pass protection they've been pretty stout, though. And at right tackle, Mason Miller is also a pretty stout player. So the two tackles here are very good, going up against a pass rush that puts up, almost 2.5 sacks per contest. Do you think that it's going to be a tough day for the Bison, even though they only have one receiver and the running backs are coming off a very sluggish effort, or do you think that Cam Miller can really elevate this unit and they can start to put up more points compared to last time out?
Certainly disappointing for what this rushing attack was able to do against South Dakota State Brown. I still, a lot of faith in him so far this season. 1,100 yards rushing, 5 yards per carry, 14 scores, 73 per game. I think he'll get to that 73 mark in this matchup here, which is a big key. Obviously, Lane's a really fun player to watch. Nearly 1,000 yards receiving, the 16 touchdowns is a very impressive number. No one else really gets close to that. Chris Harris and Braylon Henderson each have 2 receiving touchdowns. They got below 400 yards. They have 320 for Henderson, 390 for Harris, while Mekhi Collins has 3 receptions in the red zone and about 18 yards for grab for him on 300 yards as well. So they got some decent enough targets, but these guys, obviously, this is the Bryce Lance show. He's going to get a ton of targets here. Can South Dakota State or can Montana State play good defense against that? I certainly think it's possible. They have some strong players in the secondary that are known for getting some ball hawking interceptions and looking really good. I think John Jackson's a solid piece as well for this team. He's looking to get a couple pass breakups here and be solid, while Andrew Podger is another strong piece in this Montana State secondary. I think this offense still has a lot of potential to put up a lot of yards on the ground. Gonna have to have a good day from Brown, but Miller's got to be very accurate like he has been all season. I think this is good. This offensive line is a really strong unit that can stand up well here. I think Montana State will get some pressure early on, but I think North Dakota State will adjust in game and play a strong game on the offensive line.
Now you move to the other side of things, the Montana State offense against the Bison D, and this is a team that leads the FCS in points per game, 484 yards per contest as well. Their quarterback is, just as good, if not even better, and his production speaks volumes. Tommy Malo, this guy is phenomenal. He has 2 interceptions on top of 29 touchdowns, completing about 69%, 170 yards per game passing. This isn't a team that throws the ball a whole lot. Only 190 attempts in 15 games. 915 rushing, that is, and 14 touchdowns. If he puts up 80-plus in this one, he'll be the 3rd rusher to top 1,000 yards. This is ridiculous production. Adam Jones has 1134 and 14 scores, and then 1360 for Scott Trey Humphrey with another 15 touchdowns. I mean, this is absurd, Nick. 301 yards rushing per game. Montana State really gets after it running the football. And these guys all get double-figure carries per game. They're looking at about 50-plus touches per contest running the football. They're going to look to dominate time of possession. Had 222 yards rushing in South Dakota. It's great, but for them, it probably isn't the level they want to be at. They really do want to be at that 250-plus mark to really feel like they can take over these games. This is a phenomenal rushing attack going up against a defense that they're 22nd nationally against the run, 119 yards per contest allowed. They got some nice players of their own on the D-line. Eli Mostert, Oshaika, Roquez, Cody Huseman. There's a nice trio that they bring to the table there. And then Dylan Hendricks, I don't know his injury status, but if he's not playing, that's going to be a big deal for them. This is a great North Dakota defense, Nick, and I don't think Hendricks is going to be playing, so that's going to be a bit of a loss. Good defense here, though. This is the toughest rushing attack I'm sure they've seen all year, and this is going to be a major challenge. I mean, the production is just mind-shattering.
The production is mind-shattering when you look at it. It's absolutely incredible numbers. Tommy Malone, another quarterback that we previewed earlier in the season, the preseason, week 0. They took on New Mexico in a battle that was for the kick off the season in a game where they were favorites, an FCS team against an FBS team, favorites in that matchup. They ended up winning that game in a really phenomenal late comeback. We previewed him. We talked about this quarterback. Another player I thought was going to be pretty special this year. 2 interceptions is a really impressive number on 276 attempts. This guy is very good at protecting the ball. 68% comp rate, about 69% comp rate, 2,500 yards passing, and 29 touchdowns. Good numbers from Malott, who's really good on the ground as well. Nearly 1,000 yards rushing, just about 100, less than 100 yards short of that. He could potentially get there if he has a really strong day here. 14 touchdowns as well, while Adam Jones and Scott Trey Humphrey have 14 and 15 touchdowns respectively. Incredible numbers there. Humphrey 1360 and 7.2 yards per carry, including a 79-yard touchdown. And then Jones had a big 93-yard touchdown in the game against New Mexico that helped them get back in that one. 1,100 yards for him on the ground, 14 touchdowns. An incredible rushing attack that's really good, firing on all cylinders here. I do like what this defense can do for North Dakota State. They're a physical unit. They're solid against the run. They have big physical defensive line pieces that got some sacks and some pressure on Colorado earlier in the year. They're a big physical unit. I like what they can do against the run. You rattled off some names there that are solid. I think this is a big chess piece matchup here. Going to see which coaching staff can get the best out of their unit. Great offense versus a great defense against the run, and a great defense running the ball, or great offense running the ball, great defense against the run. Always a matchup worth tuning in for.
Logan Kopp and Marcus Gully, two great linebackers against the run. They got two other guys that get involved a good bit that aren't as polished against the run or as good in coverage, so it's going to be those two, I think, getting the bulk of the workload in this game to try and limit their chances. Darius Guyvance hasn't been that great of a tackler at safety, neither is Ryan Jones. I think this is a big issue for North Dakota State, Nick. Jalen Cumbie, he's a little bit better. Crumby, that is, sorry. These guys aren't very effective as tacklers. Ryan Jones has 16 missed tackles this year. None of them have really stood out as run defenders, and that's going to be a big area of concern. And I think they might look to go to different type of scheming to try and get those safeties off the field, maybe get some extra linebackers. But in that case, Montana State might look to open up the passing game a little bit more. Taco Dowler leading the team with 546 yards and 10 scores. Then Ty McCullough is a very athletic pass catcher with 497. And Rahan Jones as their number 3 guy. He's got 8 touchdowns this year. So it seems like there's some big disadvantages here for North Dakota State because the inability of these defensive backs to be effective against this type of offense might certainly cause issues.
Ryan Jones has 36 total tackles, but missed 16 this year. Really tough numbers. Logan Kopp leads the way for this team in terms of tackles as a linebacker. A really talented player. 69 total tackles, 8 extra loss for him on the season. 3 sacks, 3 picks, 6 pass breakups. He's a do-it-all kind of guy. I like what he can do. I'm concerned about some other pieces in the secondary that you rattled off there that I think are just a little bit weaker. That's going to be a big thing here. If Montana State has success throwing the ball and attacking the safeties and corners, they can have a lot of success in this game. Dowler's a really good player, 546 for him, 15.6 yards per catch, and 10 touchdowns. He's a 72-yard grab, the longest of the season. This is a more well-rounded passing unit. Rohan Jones has 451, 16.7, and 8 scores for the team, leading the way in touchdowns just behind Dowler, who has 10. Not leading the way, he's number 2 on the team, while Dowler has 10, leading the way for this unit. Some other pieces, Ryan Longerin has 2 touchdowns as well on the season. He's about 200 yards receiving, 16.5 yards per grab. So they got about 5 different guys here that get involved in the offense that are solid receivers. They can spread the ball out. They can hit you in a couple different ways here. They're going to win this game. I think it's because they can do it through the air. I think the run defense will be strong enough for NDSU. Again, they find success through the air if the run offense is struggling. I think it's possible. This is a unit that's pretty well rounded and pretty well polished.
The good news is the corners in Jalen Duffy and Marcus Shepard a little bit better against the run, a little bit more efficient as tacklers, so they can certainly come up and make some plays. We have the final thoughts on the prediction for the FCS National Championship game. This should be a good one. The last 3 FCS national titles have been horrid. They've been 20-plus point blowouts. That doesn't seem to be the case in this one. A very tight spread, 2 great offenses, and 2 teams that are very good on defense as well. This should be a fun game between scheming, explosive plays, who can provide the tougher defense. Both of them had issues in their semifinal games, though. Montana State allowed 2 runs of 40-plus yards, so that's certainly maybe an opportunity that North Dakota State can spurn. While on the other hand, the Bison, they were horrendous on third down against the Jackrabbits. There was a late touchdown drive that went 90 yards in the fourth quarter to tie it by South Dakota State. They converted 3 third and 10s in a row, Nick, and that's just horrid. So both these guys have had their issues, and they're not invincible as much as it may seem. I think I'm going to stick with Tommy Malone and his rushing attack, though, to get the job done over the dynasty of the Bison. I know typically we'd root for a team like this to get the job done. My gut's telling me Montana State, though, Nick, even though North Dakota State, they have some very intriguing pieces. A team that has really had no blemish while getting here. They almost beat Colorado, lost by a point. I think it was South Dakota on the road, while one team is 15-0 in the Bobcats. I'm going to stick with them to get the job done in the national title game, and I think the over, or the total, that is going to be a certain interesting discussion. Do you think it's going to be an offensive explosion, or we'll see a little bit more defense? I'm going to lean with the under, which is crazy because the numbers these teams put up are phenomenal. You're going to take the over and the underdog, get the straight-out national title victory.
Yeah, I'm going to take the underdog here and the over. I think there'll be a fair amount of points here. I like to talk about a little bit of history here. Certainly, I always like to talk history when it comes to these big games. North Dakota State, obviously, they're a dynasty. We know what they've done since 2010. They've won so many titles. They've won 9 since 2010, so 9 of the last 13 national titles. And there were several periods in a row. There was a period where they won 5 in a row from 2011 to 2016, and then they also won 3 in a row from 2017 to 2019. So just incredible numbers. They also beat this same exact team in 2022 for their last natty. They beat Montana State 38-10 in a blowout. Matt Entz, the coach from that team, left and was a coach at USC, associate head coach and linebackers coach. I mentioned that earlier. He just took the Fresno State job, which I think was a pretty good hire for him. He's a really good player that's known to coach that is able to motivate and build a solid roster. Montana State looking at their first title since the 1980s. They have not really competed at the highest level. The last title they won was 1984, where they beat Louisiana Tech in a game that was a very close, low-scoring affair. This is a very good Montana State team, right? 15-0, beat an FBS team earlier in the year. Certainly impressive roster. That's a really talented offense and a great defense. NDSU, they've played really good football as well. Like you said, they only lost to Colorado, which is not a bad loss on the road, and then lost to South Dakota, a team that this Montana team just beat, who are really considered the favorites all year long. I'm going to take NDSU, though, right? Maybe I'm going with a little bit of bias because I think this team's a fun team to watch, and maybe I'm leaning with the history and not the current moment. But I think this NDSU team has a point to prove. They were really not looked at as a potential favorite for the national title in the FCS level in the preseason. They were not getting the love they previously get. There were some questions about the coaching with their first-year head coach. There were some questions about the quarterback play. Miller has silenced those doubters. He's been phenomenal this year. The defense is a little bit concerning at times, but I'm expecting them to have a decent enough day to get them over the edge, and the offense will be the one that ultimately carries them in a shootout. Excited. Glad this game's on a Monday instead. I believe it used to be on a Saturday or a Sunday, conflicting with the NFL, if I'm not mistaken. On a Monday night, it'll have a lot of eyeballs and have a lot of attention, a lot of good looks at it on the 6th. I'm excited for this matchup. The FCS National Championship is always a fun thing to check out, and I'm looking forward to seeing who gets to take home the trophy.
Yeah, great start time as well, 7 p.m., so I should certainly be able to get this one in, and it should be a good one. It's going to be it for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.